Today's guest is a man who needs no introduction. With 12 years of law enforcement experience, Julian Armijo is changing the game and setting a new standard in interdiction tactics. Let's welcome him to Behind the Shield. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell us what you're doing, where you at. I know there's some people that know who you are obviously off of social media and a couple big instructors like Nick Jackson and stuff. But let's talk about you. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm currently in New Mexico. I work for New Mexico State Police. I've been with them for a little over 2 years now. I live in Grants, New Mexico, so close to Interstate 40. I'm part of the Canine Criminal Enforcement Unit, so I work mostly interdiction here in New Mexico. So that's my main gig right now.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. And did you ever see yourself being an interdiction officer? And did you just want to be a cop?
Well, honestly, I really didn't know what interdiction was. When I first started law enforcement, I just wanted to go out there and write tickets and arrest bad guys and just throw out them stats. I just didn't understand interdiction until actually my partner that I work with now in New Mexico State Police. I was still a rookie when I started, and he actually called for backup on a traffic stop. It's pretty funny, and I get there as a rookie, and he's on the side of the road on the Interstate 40 with the vehicle. He has the back hatch of an SUV popped up. So I walk up, and he's like, "Hey, just watch the guy for me. Watch my back. I'm gonna open up this compartment." In my head, I'm like, "Well, what's a compartment?" So he has this battery with some cables and connects these two wires to the battery, and lo and behold, a big compartment opens up, and I see a ton of kilos in the compartment. And at that point, I'm like, what the heck is this? There's more out here than just writing tickets and arresting, bad guys on simple warrants and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty neat.
That's awesome. Definitely a game changer, I bet. I,
Oh yeah, 100%.
I was the same way on my first load. Honestly, man, I'd shit myself. I was like, this is crazy. Like in a small rural town of where I'm at, like to be getting kilos, it was insane. Um, and I would have never have thought, it's crazy because you say
Right.
you were on I-70, right?
I-40.
I-40. Do you ever
Yeah,
work
I-40.
I-25 or anything like that?
Yeah, well, we work I-25 once in a while when we work operations. We'll go down towards Cruces or
Oh,
towards outside of Santa Fe, and we'll work 25. And 25 is a really good interstate to work also for interdiction.
yeah.
But I'm mostly on I-40.
Yeah, I just found out it was crazy. I went to Texas for 2 weeks. Well, I should have been there for three, but my brother ended up staying up there for longer than me. We were training a dog for Taylor County, and I didn't realize that Highway 285 literally went all the way down to you guys. Like it, I
Yeah,
mean, that's nuts. And then went all the way down to the border. I mean, we took 285 all the way down to the Mexico border. It was crazy. I don't know if
yeah,
that.
I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of these smugglers will use the back roads to bypass us here on Interstate 40. The past 3 years we just hammered it so hard. We took so much dope off the interstate, and now it's a little bit different. It's harder for us now because they're taking the back roads. The trends have changed. It's just a lot tougher now that the administration with the president and stuff has changed.
Right.
But it's still out there, but it's a lot harder now.
A lot harder. So you said that you were a trooper for two. Is there other agencies that you worked for prior to that?
Yeah, so I started in 2013. I started with Cibola County Sheriff's Office. That's when I started my career in law enforcement. They sent me through academy. I graduated the academy here in Santa Fe, um, and went back out on the streets as a deputy, and just handled calls and wrote tickets. And like I said, even after I seen that load from my partner, who's my partner now, I still didn't really work interdiction that much. I was just was out there as a young cop, just doing other things, just being gun ho to write tickets and arrest people on warrants.
Right, right.
But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's
so
pretty standard, I guess, as a young rookie. You kind of just you want to just go and arrest everybody.
yeah, no, for sure, that's how it is. You just want to kind of make yourself known within a department. Kind of, I guess, prove yourself that you could do this stuff. But when I so once I worked for Cibola County Sheriff's Office for from 2013 to about 2016, and then I went to the Grants Police Department in the city of Grants, and that's actually where I became a canine handler. In 2017, became a certified canine handler. Dual purpose dog, had a patrol dog, track dog, and a narcotic dog. So that
Nice.
was, being a new handler, that was pretty tough for me. Just jumping into to a patrol dog right away. There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, just even just the simple maintenance off duty and stuff is just so much. I don't think people that realize that, being a canine handler, I think that, some people think that being a canine handler is easy and all you do is just, you work them a little bit, you do a little bit of training here and there and, feed and water them and give them baths and that's basically it. But, had personal experience myself being, a canine handler for, well over 16 years, have my own company, training company and stuff too. So it's just a
Yeah.
lot of work, man. And yeah, so well, how was that like when you first got him right at the door? I was like listening to stories like that. How was that
I
like?
was really nervous. Yeah, I was really nervous when the spot opened. I was actually hesitant to even put in for it, and my wife is the one that kind of gave me the push and was like, what, step out of your comfort zone. Try it. You might like it.
Yeah,
So I put in for it, and of course I got the spot within the department, and they gave me this big old 80-pound Belgian patrol dog, and to tell you the truth, I was scared shitless. I didn't know anything about dogs, and they're telling me that this dog could potentially bite me. I was freaked out.
yeah, yeah. No, that's how I was the first time I had a. She was a little bit smaller than that. She was probably maybe 60, 70 pounds, but she was definitely a fur missile. For my first dog, she tested me. Um, but I think that was kind of the adrenaline of it too, is the fact that she did test me. She made me feel like, I was you know, like if I could even handle it. Like I'm not gonna lie, there was times where I was like, man, I think I just need to turn her back in and just go back to regular street. But just,
Yeah,
just she definitely
and
tested
and,
me.
and what made it worse for me is they sent me off to handler school, so I went through it was like 7 or 8 weeks handler school, for a dual purpose dog,
Yeah,
and I'm not even kidding, dude. The first day I'm there, they have all these handlers lined up with their new dogs, and about three dogs down from me, I just hear a dog go off, dude, and I just hear someone screaming. I look over and there's this guy from another agency, and his dog's just lashed on his forearm, dude, just tearing him up. And I look over to the guy next to me, and I look down at my dog, and I'm like, man, do I want to stay here? Do I want to go home and just turn this dog in? Because I don't want that happening to me.
right. Now,
But
did you get placed with your dog, or did you actually get to select?
so he was actually with a handler prior to me,
Oh,
and
okay.
that handler left the agency. So
That,
he was selected for that handler was actually selected him.
oh,
But
okay.
for me, for me, they just were like, we have a dog. You either take him or you don't. We're
Yeah,
gonna end up getting rid of him. So like I said, I did it. My wife pushed me out of my comfort zone. I got the dog, and this that dog has been my best friend. I still have him now. He's retired at this point, and he still lives here at home with me, and he's just my buddy.
yeah. No, it's definitely it's a different kind of. I guess, part of your career, but it's just such an amazing thing to do. Not everybody gets the opportunity to be canine handler, so the fact
Oh,
that you
100%.
are and still are, it's awesome. What's his name?
His name is Rinkin. That's
Oh, that's cool.
that's yeah. He's my old guy. He just turned about 12 now, so he's starting to slow down. His hips are starting to hurt him a little bit, but
Yeah.
he still he still wants to play tug of war and chase the ball as slow as he can.
Yeah. No, it's still awesome to do that stuff with them. But anyway,
Yeah.
man. So where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? What do you see yourself doing?
So I actually want to, still be working interdiction, and I see myself, being the lieutenant within our division. I want to promote within our division if I can, in the canine team.
Yeah.
Um, I just love working interdiction. I love working a dog. I've had my dog, a dog mostly my whole career, so seeing myself without a dog would be kind of hard, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. Now, do you just work for state police, or I kind of just giving the viewers, obviously I know a little bit more about you because I know you, but there's a couple things that we've done together. But do you just work for the state police, or you want to join? I know you said you were on a task force. Is it a full-time task force or just when operations come up?
No, I'm on a full time task force with Department of Homeland Security. So I'm actually a task force officer. 24/7 with them. So
Nice,
anything that we get here on the interstate interdiction wise, it falls under my federal hat. So
nice.
everything goes with the feds.
Cool. Well, and like I say, I'm kind of biased because I know who you are. I think we've had one mission together already. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
was a good one, man. That was a good one.
yeah, that one took a long time, man. It was 2 years. 2 years was a long time to get it done, but we got it done.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so man, you got a lot going on. What do you do to kind of bring yourself down from your busy schedule?
So I like to, spend time with family, of course. My wife and I, we have our own business. We have a gym here in Grants,
Oh,
T
cool.
Bone's gym. So my wife, she does that. She runs a gym during the day while I'm at work. She's a personal trainer. She runs different programs within the gym. So on my downtime when I'm not at work, I like to go work out, relieve stress, and just
Yeah,
hang out at the gym.
yeah,
Um, and also, on the weekend on Sunday we go to church and you
good,
know do our thing on Sunday, and that helps me a lot.
good. Yeah, obviously me and you, like I said, me and you are friends on Facebook and stuff, and I see your journey, man, and it's awesome. The fact that, you know, you obviously you found God, and you and your wife, like it's awesome to see that you guys, have such a good impact on each other because, not only is she picking you up, but you're picking her up. And I like to see that stuff. Because it does bring a side of hope that, even in this career, however hard it may be, family, God and family always come first, and so I
Right.
like that. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
My
what?
my wife, my wife, she's my rock. She's always there for me. She backs me up no matter what. And it was there was times in my life where I was in a dark spot and I didn't really know what to do. And my wife would always just pray with me, pray for me, and it wasn't until I actually found God myself where things started changing for the better. I started feeling better about different things, and actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, it just gives you a sense, like I said, a sense of hope, for the younger viewers that are listening to this podcast. You always have to find something, to, to deal with the stress of the job. And if
Um,
it's finding faith, do it. If it's getting into the gym,
yeah,
do it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, working out, is a big part of, I think it should be a big part of every law enforcement, person's downtime or their career, because you never know when you're going to get in that fight where you need to be stronger than that person because, there's evil out there, especially nowadays. No one respects cops anymore, man. It's sad.
Yeah, very. Have you in your course of career have you ever had um, an encounter where you just pushes you more now than ever? It's, whether it be good or a dangerous situation.
Yeah, man. Like, when I was with Cibola County, I was actually part of the SWAT team there. So, of course, me having a dual purpose dog, I was always deployed, you know, to crazy situations,
Right.
So I was always the first one in the stack with the dog, sending my dog in. And, you know, I've seen some crazy stuff, I've had to do some crazy stuff, and it's hard.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, it's things have changed me for sure, and like I said, by with my faith, it's helped me a lot. Actually, one of I think one of the big things that kind of changed me was, when I was working with Cibola County, I actually got dispatched to a call. Me and my partner, it was two of us working that day. A guy was firing a gun near a post office in the middle of a little town here in New Mexico.
Wow.
We get there. The guy sees us, takes off on foot. He's running towards some houses. Well, with me, with the bite dog, I send my dog off for a bite. The guy trips. As my dog's approaching, the guy's turning around, reaching in for the gun in his jacket pocket, and my dog got there just in time and hit this guy. The guy throws the gun. He hits him so hard the gun actually flies out of his hand,
Oh wow.
and my dog either saved my life or saved that guy's life. It was a crazy situation.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I kind of have a similar for me. I That's how I found, started finding God. I in 2023 I was involved in a officer involved shooting. I I got called to a suspicious vehicle. Um, when I approached the vehicle or whatever, they took off. Well, as I was pursuing them, the passenger shot at me with a AR-15,
Oh
um,
wow.
8 times, striking my vehicle. Um, and we ended up getting him into custody or whatever. But man, it felt like when I was chasing him, it felt like was such a long time. It was kind of crazy because initially when he started shooting at me, I was so tunnel visioned. I didn't even I didn't even realize that I was getting shot at
Yeah.
until I started hearing the ricochet off of my patrol car. Um, if you were to see my body camera and stuff now, man, it was crazy. I was so calm about it. It was like I said, I was tunnel visioned. I didn't even know
Right.
until I
And
got
I think
midway through. So,
right. I think that's where your training, comes into play. You just kind of flip that switch and you got to, handle business.
right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and he was a young guy. It was kind of crazy. The backstory of it was he was only 19 years old.
Oh wow.
But he ended up shooting up his girlfriend's house in Denver the night before he got into our small town. Um, he ended up shooting up her house. Uh, Luckily, nobody was killed or anything like that. But uh, he
Yeah.
definitely had a mission. Um, and so, yeah, it was a little over 20 miles um, of us pursuing before he ended up crashing into a ditch. I attempted TVI, it didn't work. They ended up
Yeah.
bouncing back onto the highway. Like it was kind of a crazy deal, but like I said, that was my moment that I knew that I had a guardian angel or God was definitely looking over me that day. Um,
Yeah. 100%.
just because if you were to look at my car, you would see the bullet holes. None of them hit the windshield, but you would see them in the top part down there by my hood, hit my
Right.
my push bumper and stuff like that in my Tahoe. Um, one of them hit the side, and luckily my canine was, laying down. He was funny. Every time we had pursuit or we were run hot on coat, he would just lay down. I don't know why. My second dog would howl and bounce back and forth in the cage and all that other stuff,
Yeah.
but him, he just laid down and was like, whatever, man, let's just get this done. But
Right.
but yeah,
That's cool.
so but yeah, so tell us the first thing your first load or that you could remember that your how you felt about it. Tell the viewers.
So it was in 2019. I started working interdiction, full time with Cibola County with my old dog. Um, my sheriff, my undersheriff were, really supportive of letting me going out and work interdiction. I was out working interdiction on I-40, and I stopped this SUV. Believe it was out of California. Uh, Older male subject. He was in his 70s. Just talking to him. I had gone to some interdiction classes prior, to working in interdiction. So,
Oh,
I started talking to this guy, listening to his travel plans, his story. Just different factors started coming into play where I everything started to snap in my head. Like something's wrong. Something's there's some criminal activity afoot right now. Like I need to figure out what it is. And sure enough, talked to the guy, got consent to search, and found a bunch of suitcases in the back. They had little padlocks on them. So talked to the driver. The driver gave me the lock. I unlocked it, or the key to unlock the lock. I unlocked it, and it was a bunch of weed. It was a weed load, but it's funny because my body cam, everybody still makes fun of me now. My old admin, they can just hear my breathing just increase. I they're like, man, you sounded like the smuggler at that point, man. Your body behavior was crazy. Just my deep breathing and so exciting. But yeah, man, my first that was my first big load that I got, and after that, man, I just kind of just started hammering and started hitting a lot of dope.
yeah. So New Mexico, if I remember right, New Mexico, they legalized marijuana, right?
Yeah, yeah, they did. So that load was right before they had legalized it, so I was able to charge the guy. So now in New Mexico, marijuana is legal. You could have up to 2 ounces of marijuana. So the odor of marijuana doesn't give us any PC to search anymore. But since I'm a federal task force officer, I can still search on the odor of marijuana on the federal side, which gives me that authority to do that, which helps us out a lot over here because a lot of these guys will just use the odor of marijuana to cover up the big stuff.
Right. That makes sense. Do you
Yeah.
now what do you call those types of loads for newer viewers? Like, are those just like what are they what do you call them, I guess? Is there a specific name to
What do you
them,
mean?
or like like just putting a bunch of backpacks in the back of a car and going? Is it like a hot shot or is
Oh
it
yeah, yeah, yeah. We call that a suicide load. They just
suicide?
throw the duffel bags in the back seat and take off. Yeah, suicide load, man. They're just taking that chance. And like
Right.
I said, from 2019 to about last year, we were seeing a bunch of that. There was bunch of fentanyl coming through. They were just loading it in duffel bags, throwing it in the back seat or in the trunk, and just driving down the road. They didn't
That,
care if we found it or not. Because they had five more loads coming down behind them.
right. Makes sense. Yeah, that's crazy. Do you, I mean, have you guys or were you able to like on some of these loads and stuff that you get, are you able to like pull one over and then pull another one right after, or are they spread out pretty different, like which I guess what patterns and stuff do you see on your end? I know for me it's
Yeah,
we pull them over and then we'll get something and then, it's not even a day or two later that we'll turn around and get another one.
yeah. There's times we have done that before, and there's times where we have just dry spells. Like right now, I've been in a slump and in a dry spell for a while now, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for everyone. You're out there working, stopping these cars, not getting anything, but
Yeah.
that's how it works with interdiction. You're gonna have your dry spells, but once you hit again, you're gonna hit. If you just put your training and your experience and everything that you've learned out there, you're gonna hit dope.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, man, we've there's times where me and Nick, when I was working with the county, Nick would, Nick Jackson would come out and we'd work together, and I'd hit a load, head to the office, then he'd hit a load right behind me, and we had, two vehicles in the Sally port, searching two vehicles, and bad guys, just sitting right there in handcuffs. We've had some good arrests and some fun together.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's awesome. So, what do you what do you think about networking, and do you think that it helps, or do you think that it kind of hinders interdiction, in your opinion?
No, man. Networking is great. Networking is great in my opinion, because we're all out there doing the same job. We all want to get that bad guy. No one's better than anyone else. Hey, if I can't get this car stopped, if I think it's a good car, I'm gonna call my buddy, down in Texas, Oklahoma, or if it's going westbound out in Arizona, Cali, out towards you, give you guys a call. Hey, I can't get this car stopped, man. You know, I've had several guys call me. We can't get this car stopped. We think it's a good car. Can you try getting it stopped? Or if I, have a vehicle run for me, I'll call the other officer in next state down for me, and they'll get him stopped for me.
Right.
But yeah, man, networking is 110%. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I did at first, I before I got into, because obviously, like with me, I still had to do local calls and all that other stuff. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
full-time unit or anything like that. Um,
Right.
but like, getting into some of these interdiction classes like ACIT, um, like the dynamic and, um, Red Ninja and stuff like that. Getting into all those bigger name interdiction trainings was, I feel like, definitely helped me not only open my eyes to different things, but also to, again, the networking. It just, I mean, I could call, any one of those guys. I can call him, Nick, same thing. Call him, say, hey man, like I'm seeing this or I'm seeing that, and he just the willingness for them just to help you out and say, yeah, look here, or like, I think you missed it, but try this. So I think it's awesome
Right.
that networking like that, in its whole. I just think like younger viewers and stuff that are listening now, just don't be afraid to reach out to some of these guys. Even Julian, I'm sure, is going to be open, to tell you, yeah, this is what I've seen, or this is a pattern I've seen. Because I mean, at the
Yeah.
end of the
Yeah.
day, we're
100%.
we're open to the same cause, right? So
Right. Yeah, I always have guys, reach out to me on Facebook, on Messenger. They'll ask me some questions, and there's times where I'm busy and I can't get back to them right away, but I'll eventually get back to them and try to answer the question the best as I can. If I don't have the answer, I'll find it for them. But yeah, for these younger listeners, there's always people out there willing to help you. Don't be scared to reach out. Don't be afraid to network, and don't be afraid to go to training. I know some departments they don't pay for you to go to training. They don't want to send you to training. But if you had to go to training and pay out of your own pocket, man, like I suggest you do it. You just get some training under your belt, and it's gonna help you out there when you're working the road.
for sure, yeah, I agree. There's a couple times where I had to pay for my own classes, but honestly,
Yeah.
to me, it was worth it. I went to a couple years ago. I went to the motor vehicle conference. I think that's an awesome conference to go to if you can go to it,
Mhm.
because you're getting the best, instructors, the best everything. Um,
Right.
and that's what's the cool thing about it, is there's so much classes out there. You just got to be able to go out there and try to do it. Um, and just don't be afraid if you have to pay for it on your own. If the means are there and you
Right.
can do it, do it.
Right,
So
exactly. And and we're talking a lot about interdiction, but there's guys out there that aren't working interdiction that can still go to these classes and learn and put those tactics, into play inside the city. You don't have to use these tactics on the interstate all the time. all this stuff that they're teaching you. You could do it in the city. You could catch these, these these dopers in the city and make these arrests. The training is good for everybody.
For sure. Well, and it's not just, yeah, like you said, it's not just the interstate. You could, small highways, single lane highways, things like that. That
Right.
literally that's all I have is single lane highways. I don't have any interstates next to me. My
Yeah.
closest interstate is I-25, and that's, an hour and a half away from east of me. So it's like,
Right.
I don't have that at all, but you could use the same tactics even on the street and still get to the same
Mm.
results. You might not get pounds, but you're definitely going to get, you know, catch a key here and there, or, one of my latest ones that I had, it was just a local street bust, just using the same tactics as I do in interdiction, but just talked to the driver, started talking to the driver. You could see the suspiciousness in his, in his tone and all that other stuff. And, ended up getting, 10, 11 little, small ounces of cocaine turned out to being
Right.
six keys. So,
Right.
that
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. Could you imagine the impact you put on your town? By getting that off the street.
Right. For sure.
That's awesome.
And, and even in our small town, like another course that I recommend him getting into is with Victor Galaza. I know you know who that guy is,
Oh
but he
yeah, that's my
teaches the
buddy.
cartel stuff, and man, he just to the point. You could see there, like the history and everything behind it. There's so much that entails to it
Yes.
all, and so
Yes. Yeah, that's a great class to attend. Because you know no matter where you're at, there's going to be cartel out there. And to learn about it and to learn these different techniques that they're doing and these different symbols that they use, and that could potentially save your life. You may not get drugs out of it, but hey, that might save your life one day.
for sure. For sure. Now, are you just seeing suicide loads, or are you guys seeing other stuff too?
No, right now. So this past year, it's changed a lot, man. It's a lot harder. We're seeing a lot of compartments now. We're seeing a lot of deep concealments, um, a few suicide loads, but deep concealments. Uh, you know, compartments, seat compartments, floor compartments, center console compartments. So a lot of deeper concealment. I think at the borders they're working so hard right now and hammering so hard. They're just trying to hide that dope as good as they can and get it across.
Makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Do you guys, I mean, interdiction, obviously, when we talk about interdiction, a lot of people, when they do that, they're talking about like narcotics and things like that. But what about human smuggling? Is that something that you see trending in New Mexico, or not really
Yes, we
in your,
yes the, so with the last minute administration, with the last president and his administration, man, it was out of control, man. It was we'd stop these vehicles and small little sedans with 15 people in them, SUVs with 25, 30 people in them, just laying on each other, sitting on each other's laps, and it was hard because we weren't able to do anything. What we would do is we would just cite them, get them off the road so they don't crash and kill themselves by not being buckled up, and
right?
get them on their way, But this past year, when everything has changed, being with HSI, they wanted us to stop them, and they'd actually come down in the bus and pick them up.
Oh,
But yeah, man, it was huge.
yeah, that's wild. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had cases and stuff of like some of my CIs and stuff that are like, hey, like this is the biggest trend right now, and I don't know if it's just it's like slowed down the narcotics. I guess maybe because they're finding the
Yeah.
cartels are probably getting more money for smuggling humans than they are
Dude,
narcotics. But
they're getting paid an insane amount of money to smuggle people. Even these drivers that are just driving them, they're banking it, man. They're getting a lot of money just for one person, So if you can imagine, a large SUV with 25 to 30 people, they're making I think the last I heard they're getting paid 1,500 a person.
Wow,
So
that's
that's a
crazy.
lot of money.
That is crazy. I
Yeah.
lately I've been so into that for I don't know whatever reason. Maybe it's because we just got back from Teller County and over there, like that's what they see so much of is human smuggling. Like, I mean, they're literally 20 minutes away from. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, it's a mountain that they got to go over, but they're doing it, And man, we would be hanging
Right.
out and having some barbecue or whatever after a long day of training, and those guys would still go out and have to go get, uh, the migrants and stuff coming over, and they would get them, man. They would get like
Right.
10 to 20 people at a time. Young kids is young as a year old. Like it was crazy, man. It's crazy to see that, but
Yeah. And for me, seeing all these, people coming across like that in these vehicles, at times it is sad for me. There's a lot of these people that are innocent, just coming, across trying to make a living. They're actually really nice people,
right,
but you got to consider, there are a lot of bad people that are coming across also, and we can't let that happen.
right, exactly, exactly. So, that being said, you said that you were primarily I-40,
Yeah,
70,
yeah. I'm
I-40.
I'm, I'm mostly on I'm mostly on I-40. I have a big stretch, so from where I'm at here, where I live, I'm about 5 minutes away from the interstate. So I just jump right on and start working right away.
Yeah, for sure.
The interstate goes right into our city, so it's nice.
Yeah.
So I have a big stretch. I have from the Arizona, New Mexico, state line. I work all the way to Albuquerque or past Albuquerque. Albuquerque's a big hub right now for drugs, so
Oh, for
we get a
sure.
lot of stuff coming through.
Yeah, it's the same here. A lot of the stuff that we've been, intercepting or whatever is just coming from Albuquerque. Um, or, that's their stop from wherever they've went. But um,
Right.
yeah, that's crazy. Um, it's just crazy how close, but how I guess how it all pans out. Um,
Right.
so uh, where do you see yourself? 10 years. You said you want to still stick to what you're doing. Are you teaching your tactics to your guys? Are they wanting that type of stuff from you?
Yeah, so I'm actually teaching within my agency. I go around each of our districts, and teach the district guys our interdiction stuff and what we've seen and what deceptive behavior, criminal activity, things like that. We're showing videos of our traffic stops that we've hit and loads on, and just showing them what to look for and what to be aware of. And then they also have me teaching at the our academy. So I'm actually teaching the real new guys
Oh, cool.
deceptive behavior and criminal indicators.
That's
So
awesome.
so that yeah, I enjoy doing that a lot. I like teaching these younger guys, about
Yeah.
criminal indicators and deceptive behavior because that that alone will save someone's life. If you're able to notice those little behaviors and little things that they do. So I really enjoy doing that.
No, I think that's awesome. I mean, I don't know exactly how Colorado State Patrol does their stuff, but I think there's a couple of guys that do interdiction and stuff. I know that have been, come around and they'll teach, their side of what they've seen and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
over here in Colorado, they have like specialized units just for that. So those guys, they call them the SID unit here. Those guys are really they're only on the interstates, and I really don't understand that. I don't. I wish that they would have,
yeah,
a couple of the guys that are part of the city unit down where I'm at, doing interdiction and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I just don't know if they just haven't caught up with the times, or they're just catching it in the cities, because that's kind of really what it's been taught for so many years is everything that's coming in is coming to the city. But It's kind of weird.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but no,
So,
man, it's fun. I enjoy what I do. I love. Like I said, I love working interdiction. I've been doing it for a while now. Working a dog, and I've just been blessed on my end to work along some of the best interdictions here in New Mexico. Two of the guys that I work with now, they've done interdiction their whole careers. Uh, Joe Garcia and Milo Lucero, those two guys, they're getting ready to retire at the end of the year, so it's going to be sad to see them go. Because they've taught me so much about interdiction and about car haulers and CMVs. They're actually starting their own. They're actually going to be teaching about car haulers. They got their own company going, so they're going to be putting on classes about car haulers. Their company is called Old School Training. So
okay.
you
Yeah,
might
I've
have seen it
seen
on
that.
some of the interdiction pages. Yeah.
Yeah,
So those are my partners. But yeah, man, those guys they're they're smart when it comes to interdiction and big trucks. Man, they've been doing it for so many years. They've seen the old ways and the new ways, so they've seen everything, evolve throughout the years, which is
nice.
cool.
No, that is awesome. That I mean, honestly, that's the best way of learning. I still to this day, my dad, I'll call my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, have you seen this back in the day?" He was a cop for 38 years, chief of police in my
Oh,
area
nice. I didn't know that.
for 22 years. And so we call him up
That's
all the
awesome.
time, and we're like, "Hey, what do you? If you seen this, or back in the day, did they do this?" And it's kind of cool to see like how things have evolved back then compared to now,
Right.
because now everything just happens so quick. But back
Right. Yeah,
then,
for
they're
sure.
they're investigating. The ways of investigating was so different, man. It's like
Yeah.
one of his sergeants is kind of funny. His sergeant passed away a while ago, but he I still remember this story where his sergeant at the time just dressed up like and I say like a cholo because like he had the bandana hat or the bandana over his head, and he decked out like kind of like the uh Austin Powers, like the mini me where they dress like that, was
Yeah.
literally like that, dude. And he went in there, went into a bar, hooked, like got connected with this one local dealer and stuff. Like, and it was crazy because like he worked the street that day. And then at night he'd turn around and
Right.
did that and ended up buying a bunch of dope off of that guy. And it was like their stories and their way they do it to compared to now. And I think a lot of it is because we overthink a lot of what's actually happening.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
100%. Yes, but 100%.
so yeah.
Yeah, man,
So
that is great.
do you have family that's in law enforcement?
So my dad actually worked for Cibola County Sheriff's Office for a while. He worked for them, for a bit, and when I was younger, I'd go on ride-alongs, and I think that's where kind of I got my itch to be in law enforcement. When I graduated, I didn't go into it right away. I worked, at the coal mine here in Grants and some, little jobs, little construction jobs with my dad and things like that. But but yeah, man, I was 22 when I actually got hired, and I loved it, man. Once I got hired, it hit the road, and it was I was hooked. I was hooked from there on.
That's awesome. I gotta ask though, is it true that you only have to be 18 years old to be a cop in New Mexico? Or did
So
they?
New Mexico State Police, you have to be 21, but
Okay.
any other agency, yeah, as long as you're 18, you could apply.
Wow, that's crazy. It's 21
Yeah,
here in Colorado, and I I mean I always knew the same thing, I always knew that I was gonna go into law enforcement. It's kind of, especially when
right.
you're raised around it, you kind of already know that that's where you're going with it. But um it's kind of crazy to see, like, because I have a couple of buddies that, they're in New Mexico that are cops and stuff, and they're telling me that they've been cops since they were 18, and I'm like, huh? Like, you just graduated,
Yeah,
man. That's crazy. Like, you didn't even
yeah,
live yet.
yeah, exactly.
You're not even old
Yeah,
enough to drink. But
yeah, exactly. It's
that's
insane.
crazy. Yeah, I
But
was lucky enough. Go ahead.
I said it's good for them because they're going to be retiring super young.
Well, that's true too. I ended up going at 20. Um, I got hired on with my first agency, the sheriff's office down where I'm at. I got hired with them at 20. They put me in the courts. And
Okay.
at that time, um, all you needed was the blessing from the sheriff. So basically, like you'd work under the sheriff, and this was back in '09. Um,
Yeah.
so you would work underneath the sheriff, and you would work under his umbrella. So I ended up going while I was going through the academy. I worked with them in the courts, and then as soon as I got out, literally I didn't even go through an FTO process. Like my sheriff was kind of like that old school cowboy guy, and he was
Yeah.
just like, "Here, get it done." Like he literally gave me keys um, to my patrol unit and said, "Get out, start taking calls out in the county." And I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I do? And I
Right.
wasn't even 21 yet. I had just right before I graduated, I guess is right when I turned 21, but I had already been working for almost a year because my academy was 10 months. It was a 10-month academy and it was all at night, um, which
Oh, dang.
horrible. I did not like that at all. I wish that I could go to the 3-month, 4-month academy, but back then they didn't even, I don't even think they had that option. And if they did, it was bigger agencies like Denver and things like that where, it was an academy for them, not, for the state. But yeah, it
Right.
was wild.
Man, that's a long academy.
Yeah, it was so long. And then we would do night stuff and um like our night training and stuff like that. It just sucked, man, because you had a long day of work. Because obviously we still had to work, and then go to the academy at night. Because I wasn't back
Oh,
when I
okay.
was
Yes.
doing it. Like our agency didn't pay us to go to the academy. Um, Now the agency that I work with now, like we send guys to the academy and they get they're paid full time, while they're there and they go through it and
Right.
no stress. They just go through school and then they're done. They do their 40 and they're
Right.
done.
Right.
But it wasn't like that for us. I would work the courts, all day at the courts and then turn around and have to go to night class and turn around and then go back to court again for an entire, Monday through Thursday. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It 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 sucked, but it was worth it for me. Like I said, I always knew that I wanted to be a cop, so kind of
Yeah.
it was what it was. Um,
Yeah. No, it's a fun job, and there's a lot that that you could do as law enforcement. There's not it's not just like we're talking about interdiction and canine. It's not just that, man. Being in law enforcement, there's so much that goes into it, man. You know, you could be a teacher one day, a counselor the next day. If you're chasing a bad guy the following day, it's a variety of stuff that you do. I just think it's the best job ever.
I agree. Well, man, I mean, I I appreciate you jumping in on that on my podcast. I think it's pretty neat to hear your story. I do want to, if you would like, I do want to maybe try to do a second episode or something with you. Um,
Oh yeah, I would
you know,
love that.
maybe talk a little bit more about your career and where you're at now, and I definitely want to try to get your wife and stuff on here, talk a little bit more about y'all's gym and your life journey together. Because, like I said, I think that's awesome. There's not a lot of not a lot of podcasts and stuff out there right now that are talking about that. It's strictly job and strictly profession. But
Right,
like I said, with me, I want to see behind the scenes of how, officers are so that young officers or even older officers that are still on the beat know that, stuff like that is actually real and it's out there and your support system throughout your journey
right.
and your career is the most important. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you, man. Yeah, I'd be happy to jump on another podcast, man. And, like I said, it's been a good one. I'm glad that you invited me to come on this one, and I was really stoked about it. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you, man. Well, stay safe, man. Good luck in your future, and I appreciate you being on my podcast.
Yeah, bro. Thank you. Yeah, you take care, man. You be careful.